Cadillac once called itself the standard of the world.
As does the famous Cadillac V and Crest.
The cars of its heyday are icons of post-war America. The tail fins, the bodies made of endless stretches of steel. They had plush seats and suspensions so soft you could feel like you were hovering over the road. This was American luxury. Huge, mellow, graceful, and maybe surprisingly, often loaded with the best tech of its day.
They were the standard for so long of luxury vehicles, but that has been, I'd say for most people, like a time they don't even remember.
The electrification era is giving Cadillac another shot. Today, it's a luxury EV leader, and it's poaching customers from everyone else.
We're up 12 consecutive quarters year over year. We're building the best Cadillacs we've ever built, really reestablishing the brand as the standard of the world.
Cadillac has really been on a tear here in the past several years, steadily moving up the sales charts.
It's great news for a brand that has long tried and failed to recapture its former prestige. But this market is tough, incentives are disappearing, and competition is fierce. CNBC dove in to find out why buyers are suddenly flocking to Cadillac EVs and whether the former standard of the world can keep up the momentum. In the second quarter of 2025, Cadillac placed first or second in the luxury EV market, depending on whether you consider Tesla a luxury brand. Some don't. Cadillac's parent GM is now second in overall sales behind Elon Musk's company. GM's EV sales grew in the first half of 2025. Tesla's fell. Cadillac is snatching EV buyers away from competitors. About 80% of Cadillac EV customers are new to the brand. 10% of them are trading in a Tesla.
Customers are coming to us from all the tier one luxury makes, Mercedes, Audi, Lexus, but BMW, and we're also seeing Tesla customers.
I hear it all the time of consumers saying like, oh wow, I would have never thought that this would look like a Cadillac, like this would be a Cadillac, and I've never thought about owning one, but here I am, and I like it.
The Escalade, a full-size SUV which came out in 1999, is still Cadillac's biggest seller. And internal combustion vehicles still make up most of Cadillac's sales, but a disproportionate share of those sales are EVs. About 6 to 8% of the new vehicle market is electric. Luxury, about 14%. Cadillac is at about 25% for the year 2025 so far, and 30 to 35% over the last 60 days. Dealers are moving a lot of product.
Like announcing the brand was going to go all EV was a wild card several years ago. Cadillac risked losing their dealer body. Now the dealers are completely bought in. I've been talking to dealers this week about Cadillac, and they are bought in not just to the ICE vehicles, they're bought into the EV side as well. When a dealer body buys in, you can really start having some successful outcomes.
Cadillac has tried to reinvent itself, turn around, change direction, or revive its fortunes many times since it first lost the attention of luxury buyers sometime in the later 20th century. Most of those attempts have either been limited or fleeting or simply failed. Those old enough to remember the auto market of the 1950s and 60s will likely recall the gargantuan Cadillacs of that era, the cars that gave the world the term land yachts.
And big fins and fat land yachts went out of style.
But over the decades, those cars got smaller, less flamboyant, boxier, and Cadillac lost ground to European and Asian imports.
They kind of lost their footing a little bit by trying to broaden the appeal of the brand, moving down market in some cases, right, by offering vehicles that didn't really fit that traditional Cadillac image of luxury and build quality.
After 2 decades or so of decline, 1999 brought a rare smash hit, the Escalade. But its success proved tough to replicate. More than 20 years later, it's still the brand's biggest seller. Following the Escalade, the strategy for a while was compete with the Germans. This did yield some acclaimed vehicles, such as the CTS and the current CT4 and CT5 sedans. Cadillac also created the V Performance line, which has earned it praise. It is still difficult to read a review of a V-badged Cadillac sedan without encountering a comparison to the BMW M3 or M5. The 2026 CT5 V Blackwing gets a perfect score from Car and Driver, and Road and Track, referring to BMW's longtime slogan, "The Ultimate Driving Machine," said, "Today, if you want a fast sedan that actually feels like a proper sports car, the Ultimate Driving Machine is a Cadillac." The problem is, customers have more often chose the German cars anyway.
They started to create these vehicles that, while impressive in their own way, were feeling like copies in some ways of these other brands, right? So you didn't feel like you were necessarily getting something that was uniquely Cadillac.
Roth took his current role at Cadillac in 2023, but has been with the brand on and off for the better half of his career. He says the roots of this current turnaround began in about 2015.
But the leadership team at that time really took a step back and did a heartfelt, honest assessment of where does Cadillac stand? What does it stand for in the marketplace? What would happen to the world if a brand like Cadillac ceased to exist? The idea, the simple response to that was an American icon would disappear from the landscape. And nobody wanted to be part of that story. Even back to 2015, we were thinking about EVs. What could they do to change the performance of a vehicle in the marketplace by getting a flat floor, by changing the drive dynamics and characteristics of the vehicle, getting things like instantaneous torque out of a car, because Cadillac has always stood for both luxury and for performance. And so as we look at the journey we've been on, this is really our crescendo moment.
Cadillac played to its strengths and market demand by focusing on SUVs.
They're kind of meeting people where they're at, and they kind of have that Escalade halo where just those sales are so good. The brand is so recognizable. People kind of want to buy vehicles in that space.
They still offer those sporty models, but turn the dials back towards luxury. And they're doing that in a really kind of unique Cadillac way with really good ride quality, for example, and the interiors feeling not only well put together compared to vehicles in the recent past, but with a unique style. And just they're really approaching it in a way that you don't feel like you're looking at a cheaper BMW, for example.
Perhaps the most scathing criticism of General Motors in the past was that many of its cars were basically just rebadged versions or only slightly dressed up versions of other cheaper vehicles in the portfolio. That's not the case with these. The Cadillac Optic shares some characteristics with the Chevrolet Equinox EV, but there are clear differences.
If you're maybe a car nerd like me, you can see some of the hard points are similar, but the materials are way different, the infotainment's different, and just, the look, feel, and experience inside the car is unique to it.
Indeed, unique, bespoke, and elite are all among what Cadillac is targeting. The $350,000 Celestiq is Cadillac's stab at the ultra-luxury market, dominated by Bentley and Rolls-Royce. The car comes with about 275 patented technologies, countless fabric and paint options, and a concierge to help a confused billionaire buyer sort it all out.
We're back to hand-building vehicles again. We haven't done that in 50 years. So it allows us to have a conversation with a client one-on-one to build them a truly bespoke vehicle that is a reflection of themselves.
The brand is already applying this high-margin customization approach to other models. Now, some CT5V Blackwing owners can customize their cars too through the Curated by Cadillac program. For example, choosing from among 160 colors. Cars given this treatment start at $158,000 and will be available to only a handful of buyers starting in 2026. The brand is also re-entering Formula One in 2026, probably the most famous and prestigious racing series in the world. The bright spot in the EV segment comes at a time when the Cadillac brand is struggling elsewhere. In 2024, China sales tanked. It was the first time since 2015 that global sales fell below 300,000 units. That is largely due to the losses in China. US sales have grown since 2021. China was an important market for Cadillac and for GM overall, but has become far more competitive.
It's like even the Chinese automakers are struggling in China trying to beat each other up. So it's like the foreign automakers are definitely struggling.
In the US, headwinds are also building. EV sales hit a record high in July as customers rush to purchase before the $7,500 federal tax credit expires on October 1st. The loophole, which allows lessees to get the credit, is also disappearing, and leases are important to both the luxury market and EVs. That said, J.D. Power is still expecting EVs to make up about 20% of total new car sales by the end of 2030. This is driven by a growing number of EVs in segments where there aren't currently any, and improvements in battery technology and charging.
What we see is a very optimistic scenario for EV growth.
The other issue is that EVs are, for the most part, not yet profitable. GM has said its electric vehicles are variable profit positive, which means they make more money than the costs of the direct materials and labor that go into them. However, that does not include the large investments GM has made in plants, research, and product development.
We have really good momentum and energy where our volume is up 20%, and with volume comes scale and the ability to really manage the brand extremely well in the marketplace.
Another big story in the auto industry is the potential impact of tariffs. All but one of Cadillac's models are built in the United States, which insulates it better than many of its competitors from tariff pressures.
Most of Cadillac's competitors are bringing in vehicles from Europe, from Asia, that are subject to a 15% tariff cost. For their competitors, they may have to pass those costs through to consumers, which could mean $10,000 to $15,000 of added costs, and that's an advantage to a brand like Cadillac, which is nearly all sourced in the United States.
Now that Cadillac has buyers, it will have to hold on to them. Reviewers and testers do say these cars aren't perfect. GM made the decision a few years ago to not allow apps like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in its EVs. That might be a deal breaker for some shoppers.
We see time and time again in our own testing, CarPlay and Android Auto are really something that people want in their cars, and Cadillac's made the decision to not include it. So it's a curious one. We'll see if they stick with that strategy in the long term.
And as those other EV segments continue to fill out, Cadillac will have more competition.
They're already at 25% transition to EV, so they're now beyond where we expect the industry to be 5 years from now. But we know things are moving really fast, and success today does not necessarily mean success tomorrow or 5 years down the road.
Right now, if you get into the market early, these people that are buying their next vehicle, chances are they'll buy from you if you have a good experience. So kind of collecting these EV owners early is always a good strategy.